What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Free Lady Show. It is a beautiful, beautiful week so far, and also crazy. Bill and I were just talking before the show. Full moon, everything's in retrograde, everything's going crazy, but we can always sit and be present in the moment that we're in right now. And I just want to say, if you guys are stressing out about the little things and what's going to happen next, just make sure to take a breath, put your feet into the earth and get grounded and be thankful for where you're at right at this moment and be present. And so I know that Bill's gone through a lot of these things in his life, and I'm very excited to share his story. So welcome, Bill, to the show.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here, Britt. Thank you so much for, first of all, for what you do. I've watched a number of your shows, and um, I love it. It's great. It's
Thank you.
non-scripted, which means that anything can be said or anything
Yep.
can happen. So thanks for what you do. I love hearing people's
Oh,
stories. So
thank you
that's
so much. I really
um,
appreciate that. And I
yeah.
appreciate you. And, like I always talk to all of my guests beforehand, and you guys, none of these episodes are scripted. I truly, truly believe that we're going to speak, through God or through the universe, whatever you believe in, on what you need to hear. I truly believe that. And Bill has an amazing story for you guys, and we're here for it. So thank you so much. Of course, yet again, I met Bill in the Lion's Den, y'all. That's literally my second family, or is my family, and has created my inner table and everything like that. And it's just a great place to be. Any community that you guys are in or join, make sure that these people are going to inspire you. That's all. That's what it's all about. You don't have to be in the Lion's Den. You don't have to be in any, coaching group that doesn't serve you, but just know that there's so many people out there that want to help serve. I launched my coaching group 4 weeks ago, you guys, called the Freedom Den. And it's literally to help you learn to love yourself so that you can excel in everything in your life and have the best life possible and learn to love life more. So you guys, there's all kinds of things. If you're looking for a certain coaching group, reach out, let us know. So Bill, what is up? Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Bill. I live in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. So I'm just north of Washington State, about 4 hours. So what do I do? Well, first of all, I'm a husband and a father. Uh, my wife, Nicole, amazing. We've been married. Actually, next weekend's our anniversary. So happy anniversary to us. But we've been married for 18 years. Been
Damn.
together for like 21.
Wow.
I met her through work like crazy. I was the guy that made her stay Friday nights to work. And yeah. So yeah, I got three daughters. So Chelsea is my oldest. She's married now. She's her second year of law school in Saskatchewan.
Wow.
Yeah. My second daughter, Olivia, she's 19. She's going into her second year of pre-med.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my youngest, which is 17, Ava, she has no desire to go to post-secondary yet. She rides horses competitively and does very, very well. I've got three very driven daughters and a wife who's driven, and myself who's motivated by all four of them.
Right.
So I've
Right.
got yeah. So and I own a business in Canada that we do IKEA furniture. We assemble and we install IKEA kitchens mostly, and we're actually just venturing into another uh, stage of our business where we're going to uh, be introducing a wrapping technique um, to North America that will help change the industry, I hope, with renovations. So really excited about
Wow.
that. That's going to launch over the next couple months. I just spent 2 weeks in the UK learning the business side and the physical, installation side of it. So really excited about that, and hopefully that will help. Help. It's changing our course of life by a degree. Um, yeah. So I grew up in BC. Spent some time living abroad here in Canada. Um, yeah, graduated high school, spent a number of years in the military, deployed to Afghanistan,
Wow.
you know, uh, and we can get into that. And what else? Went through the ups and downs, trials and tribulations of childhood cancer with my middle daughter. Yeah,
Wow.
our life's been kind of a roller coaster, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
just to go back on what you were saying at the beginning, um, perspective. Like,
Mm.
if there's one thing that um, I was fortunate when I was younger, that I had a mentor, and the one word that he'd always tell me was perspective.
Yeah.
Right? If I said I wasn't happy with something, or that I didn't have, I was jealous of somebody else, or,
Right.
perspective, right?
Right.
If I was
Right.
hurting, perspective.
Right.
Um, you know, like, eh, recognize where you are,
Right.
and know that regardless of where you are, it could be worse.
100%.
The potential for it to be better, well, yeah, absolutely. But that's up to you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be worse. And that's, you know, and I try to teach my kids that. So our daughters are very fortunate. They're very fortunate. Not only are they smart, I don't know where they get it from, but they're very smart,
Mm-hmm.
and they've found things to be fairly easy for them when it comes down to their path. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's because they're driven, they're goal orientated. They see the goal and they go for it. But we also, like to try to keep them grounded by doing volunteerism, helping
Oh.
people that aren't, you know, as fortunate as us, and just doing those things. So, and that helps maintain a balance of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's such, like, that word is so strong. Um, if any, whoever's watching it, if you're seriously having a hard time, and I'm not saying that, it's you can't have a hard time. Absolutely, everybody does.
Uh,
Um,
right.
but know that there's there's better things to come. And
Right.
you know, and I kind of alleviate that, or bring that out with having faith, not maybe not just in God or the universe, but in yourself,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Having that faith that you can make it through that tough time. And sometimes it is 1 millimeter at a time. A quarter of an inch at a time. That's all you can move forward, right? You go through and just, I suffered from depression for a long, long time. And sometimes I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Like,
Feel you.
no, forget it. I wouldn't get out of bed. And, and one morning, put my feet on the floor, and that was it.
Yeah.
Back into bed,
Yeah.
right? The next day, put my feet on the floor, go to the kitchen, then back to, like, 1 millimeter, 1 inch at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. So, yeah, perspective for sure.
Wow. That's funny that you talked about perspective, because I literally put a post in the den this morning about perspective. So that's like really cool how that like synchronized together. And that was, one of my clients who's a dear friend of mine, and she's now family to me. We have great conversations in the chair, and we were talking about perspective and like what that really means and how we can really get to choose how we are looking at our life. It is up to us and that faith that we have in ourselves. And you're absolutely right. Like, it doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be religion. It doesn't have to be the energy of the universe, even though we are all made up of energy. And that energy is very powerful when it comes to perspective of oneself and that belief, because energy flows through you all the time, and it creates positive energy or negative energy. And it's whether you're going to take that 1 degree shift of turning it into positive, or you're going to let it be negative. And I get that depression. I used to be like that too. And I think, it's really even comes to, when people talk about working out, sometimes you just have to put the workout clothes on and maybe still sit on the couch. You know what I mean? And maybe the next day you put your workout clothes and then your shoes, and then you still sit on the couch. But it's those actions and the repetitions that get you to another step. And that's so beautifully said. I mean, that is so well said. And I hope that, that does help somebody, of that it doesn't have to be a huge, gigantic thing. It's like the great example is January 1st. I'm going to start all these plans because it's a new year, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to work out every single day. I'm never going to cheat, blah, blah, blah. That is not realistic, you guys. It's not. If you're depressed, tomorrow, I'm going to love myself and I'm going to make millions of dollars, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work like that. It is a journey. And if you understand the journey and the process, that it's every single day of consistency of the little things, it makes it a big thing that you can look back on and be like, I did that. So instead of, having these year goals on New Year's, be like, okay, I've never worked out before. I'll hire a trainer and I will work with her 2 days a week. I'll hire a nutritionist. I'll eat good, 5 days a week. And then maybe the 2 days, I just like need to have my comfort food. Start with something that you can achieve, because if you bite off more than you can chew, you're most likely going to fail. And when you fail, you're going to go right. You're going to go 10 steps backward. So
That's
it's really, really wonderful what you said. I really, really appreciate that.
It reminds, and you're going to hear cliche, but starving kids in India or starving kids in Africa, right? And I don't think most people understand what that really means. And it doesn't have to be Africa. It's starving kids downtown Detroit, starving kids downtown Vancouver, right? It doesn't mean that they're starving kids. It means kind of realize where you're at and how fortunate you are.
Right.
Perspective. And you're right. It's my wife and I, we both grew up, and not that there's anything wrong growing up in a trailer park, right? And I'm not downplaying it, but that's where we grew up in, and it was the rough side of town for both of us. We both had mentally and other abuses, and we've crawled through it, and we've broken that cycle. And I think that gives us a much better perspective on life. My wife and I are very, very fortunate that we've been able to travel, and I've been able to travel to some real shitholes. And I've seen the way that people live.
Yeah.
And I get culture shock when I come back.
So different.
And know that, I was able to go to Starbucks today.
Right.
right? Like I drove to Starbucks. Somebody made me a coffee. I paid $5 for a coffee, and I drank it. Well, that that $5 for some people, and that's my little Frenchie. But that $5 for some people um, is like week's worth of wage, if not
Yeah.
more.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, we really are blessed, and sometimes we lose that. And I go to the gym. I have a trainer. I am fortunate that I can afford a trainer. I'm not I'm not by all means near my goal, but
Hmm.
um, I'm consistent with going to the gym. Uh, Last year at this time, I wasn't consistent.
Right.
I literally maybe walked twice or three times a week. A
Right.
year before that, I didn't. Right? I that wasn't me,
Right.
and it wasn't. It was kind of, I wouldn't say a health scare, but it was a wake up call to say, hey, you need to become a little bit more better in shape, and you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't, you're not going to be here for your kids or your wife, right? And you're
Right.
not going to be able to do those things that you want to do, and you're not going to
Right.
be able to serve people. It's a little hard to help people. It's a little hard to elevate people when you're already dead.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Perspective.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you believe in God? Do you believe in, and I'm just throwing this out here, I'm changing the whole trajectory here.
You
Uh,
do. This is your podcast, man.
yeah.
I'm all
All
about
right.
it. Ask
Well, I don't
away.
know about you, but I grew up as a Pentecostal. Went to a Pentecostal church as a kid. Once I,
Pentecostal.
yeah,
I actually don't know if I've ever heard of that before. What is that?
it's kind of like I guess it's like Baptist in a
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I correct me if I'm wrong, but it's pretty prevalent in the South.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, okay.
so it's I would you can compare it to Baptist, I guess.
Okay.
But so that's kind of how I grew up. I actually lived with my grandmother, and uh,
Hmm.
it's so um, when I went to high school, though, things changed for me, and I didn't, I didn't go to church, and I really struggled with religion. And as I got older, the same thing. I really struggled with whether or not, you know, what is God, who is God, where is God,
I get
what's
that.
going on. Um, Even today, um, I it, I have a hard time. The more that I look at things, you know, you, I believe that there's a higher power,
Right.
100%. I did,
Right.
whether it's a male or a female, or I think those details are all added by you know that formed group, whether it's Catholic, Pentecostal, Baptist, Zionist, whatever. They're all details to make the story, right?
Right. Right.
Really, when it boils down to it, there is a power, there's an energy, because it this has this has to come from somewhere. It just didn't materialize,
Right.
right?
Agree.
Um, and I really believe that energy is more than the constraints that sometimes religion teaches,
Hmm.
or how it's kind of I grew up thinking that it's, especially as a young kid, thinking that it's as easy as the Ten Commandments.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then as you grow older, they make it more people make it more complicated. Things get more complicated, right? Well, like
Yes.
you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. I'm like, well, what happened to just making it easy and like not being an asshole? Like, like, how about we just start being nice to people and being nice to each other? Like, let's just try that. Um, Instead of piling all
Mm-hmm.
these rules on. So
Mm-hmm.
the more that I thought about it, and it's kind of funny because I had a conversation with this about this with my daughter. That she's like, "Do you believe in God?" And I'm, well, I mean, depends what her name is, right? Like, do I believe that? I believe that there's a higher power. Do I
Mm-hmm.
believe in a heaven or hell? I don't know. Maybe I believe that if we create a life of anguish, then
Mm,
our soul will be in anguish for the rest of its existence. If
mm,
we create a life of happiness, especially not just for us, but for people around us,
right.
our soul will, after our body dies, will be in this state of happiness or somewhere in between, depending on how we live our life. Um, I don't know. I just can't. I can't fathom a heaven or hell. I honestly believe that, you know, we are on a heaven because,
Right.
like, I look at some of the beauty here, you know,
Yeah.
in the world, and it's like, how
Yeah.
can this not be
Right.
heaven? How
Right.
can we, like, yeah, how can it not, like, what could be, I, once again, we travel a lot. The beaches of St. Martin, they're white. The water's like bath
Oh
water.
yeah.
Like,
It's beautiful
how
out there.
close, like, how can that not be heaven?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's really funny that and, and I boiled it down to my daughter. I was like, you know, you just do good.
Right.
Do do what's right.
Right.
So, and that's what I, you know, another thing that I teach my kids is, you know, there's doing the right thing, and then there's doing what is right.
Right.
Two different things, right? Um, and they're sometimes they're very difficult to distinguish, and sometimes it doing what is right in the situation may mean, you know, not saying anything because somebody's doing something wrong, because, you know, you don't want to be that person in the social, you know, but doing what is right is to bring it to their somebody's attention that somebody's going to get hurt or
Right.
somebody is being hurt, and to
Right.
stop.
Right.
So yeah, and it's great. I don't know. You mentioned energy at the beginning of our conversation,
Mhm.
and I I don't know. You know, I know what I believe, and I know what I think, and I know what I teach my kids.
Mhm.
Um, do we go to church every week? No, no, far from it. Do we pray every day? Maybe not in the sense that people do, um, but we definitely ask for assistance. We definitely ask for help, and
Mm.
our response to that, or the price that we pay for that, is to help others
Yeah.
when we receive that,
That's
right?
beautiful. Yes.
So, yeah, um, that's kind of my 2 cents on religion.
I love that. I love that perspective. I actually really respect anyone's perspective.
Yeah,
So your question to that, do I believe in God? I was brought up in a Christian church. Most of my audience knows that. I talk a lot about that in my first episode where I tell my story. I went to a Christian church all the way to high school. And there was a point in my high school that I started dating a guy for a really long time. And we had conversations about, you know, having sex and whatnot. And I was like, that's a sin, you know, because I was also brought up in a very strict Christian household where everything was a sin. To even Jewish people, they were a sin. And I really, really struggled with that because, like, just because someone doesn't practice my religion doesn't, why does that make them a bad person? Why does that make them, you know, literally my mom would say that they're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And it started making me think, in high school and just being around other people and like being humbled by life and experiences, and that, not everything is like perfect. And everybody is a hypocrite in their own way. When you're brought up that like you're not a hypocrite and all these things. And so when I talked to my mom about losing my virginity, because I always strive to have that relationship with my mom, she freaked out. She freaked out. She took all the kids out of the house. I was alone by myself all day. And, notice, on the side note, my dad, he adopted me when I was 4. He's been in my life since I was 1. I think he was like 19 years old when he met my mom and I. And he was our angel. I mean, he worked so hard in his life. He went back to school twice. He was really, really quiet, but he was an amazing dad. And, my mom had pretty crazy moments. And I think he just had to put his hands up. And so I really don't, he never acted ill will towards me about those kinds of things. Like, there are some things where he did talk to me about things, but he talked to me about it. You know what I mean? He didn't like go crazy and everything like that. But I went back to church that next week to my youth group, and this youth pastor has followed us from elementary school to high school because he just loved our group. And I walk in there and everybody looked at me and just turned the other way. And I'm like, what's going on? And there was one girl that came up to me and she goes, your mom, you know how you can put in the pamphlet where everybody reads it in church on Sunday church for people to pray for, like pray for my sister, pray for my dog, pray whatever. My
Yes.
mom put my name in the pamphlet. Please pray for my daughter, Brittney McWethy, for she has sinned and is now no longer a virgin. So everyone shamed me. My mom shamed me.
Wow.
The church shamed me. And I went back the next week, because I was like, I don't want to give up this place. And I was treated the same.
Wow.
And it was so crazy. I was never mad at God. I think I was more mad, at my mom. And, at that, when I got kicked out, my grandma came and got me, and I lived with her for, the end of my junior year, all the way through my senior year. And my grandma, bless her heart, like she passed away a couple of years ago. She was so kick-ass, and I wasn't even her blood. And she treated me like her own and loved me for who I was. And I think that's, my mom and, my dad, they did their best that they could. And, but my mom did not love me for who I was. And I think you really need, if you're going to be a parent, not that I am a parent, I never got the opportunity to have kids, but like, let your kids be themselves. Let your kids like say what they need to say to you. And like, yeah, and when you're in high school, when you're older and you look at how little you are in high school, you're like, oh, my child is having sex. Like, that is pretty crazy. Like, that's pretty crazy. But you know what? Like, you think you rule the world in high school. You know what I mean? But you do have emotions. Like, I was very much in love with my boyfriend at the time. And I still love him to this day. And, like, I'm thankful. I had gratitude for that relationship. It was a really beautiful relationship, like I can say that still to this day.
Yeah.
And so like, I think, when, you say the word God, I couldn't say it for years. So then I became very spiritual because I knew that something was bigger than me. And throughout my life of friendships, people I dated, I was like, as long as you believe in something that's bigger than you, then we will connect. Because I do not think that this just all appeared all of a sudden. I mean, it did and it didn't, you know what I mean? And like, to me, like going to church is being outside. Like, and literally like being present in that moment and looking at a leaf, for crying out loud, looking at a flower, like how it changes, how it grows. Take like a lily, for example, in a pond, like a lily pond,
Yeah.
and how, they grow from the muck of the pond and they travel all the way up to the surface of this nasty, muddy pond, and they create this beautiful, a lotus flower, excuse me, a lotus flower. That's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And so I've always been very, very spiritual. I've never I really haven't been back to church since. There have been times when I've tried church and I'm just like, because it's in a box. These churches today, and I'm not saying all of them, they take advantage, man. Um, it's and I'm not going to sit here and say church is bad at all. If that's your place of peace, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And
If that's your place.
Scott and Ann Travis, who live out here in Draper, you know them from the Den, and they asked Daniel and I to come to church this past year, and Scott's like, I don't go to church, like it's not churchy, I promise you, blah 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 blah. And they were actually speaking because they were telling the story of how Anne had her brain tumor and how these prayers came to her, and literally, like, it was benign. She's amazing. I mean, they're beautiful people. Scott and Anne are beautiful people. They're good people. And to me, that's religion, goodness, kindness,
Yeah.
serving each other in love and light, and respecting each other for their beliefs. Now, if you're a murderer and you murder people, or if you're a sex trafficker, shame on you. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you. I'll never support that. But so we went to their church, and I gotta tell you, this church out here, it's called Awaken, and they just love outside of the box. They love God. They talk about loving God. They put business meetings together. They want to inspire you to be better. It's networking. It's a beautiful experience, and that's it. And I was like,
It's not about the church.
no.
No, you're
So
right.
it's a beautiful thing. And we went a couple weeks ago on a Friday, and we got to meet the owner of Everbowl. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name's Jeff. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his last name. But he started out with this like superfood company, and now he's across the nation. And we got to listen to him speak and learn what it's like, to be successful and take these steps. And what it's really about is the relationships with people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it would just woke me up. And I was like, this is a really cool thing. So maybe I'll come like once a month, you know what I mean? And get out of my shell. But going back to God, when I went to Lions Den Live last year, everyone that got on stage, talked about how powerful God was in their life, and how once they accepted it and really put their knee down to whatever that is, you don't even have to say God. They knew that God has their back and the energy is all around them. And so I was like, why am I so against the word God? Like, this is on me. This is what you just said when you talk about having faith in yourself. I didn't have that faith in myself to understand that I didn't have to be triggered by the word God because of my past. I get to accept him, her, whatever it may be, into my life because I want it to be in my life for a good thing. And so, and ever since then, like I've always meditated, but I pray, and it's very intentional about what I'm asking. And it helps me see like the light in other people, and, bringing that kindness and love, and paying for someone's coffee behind me or anything like that, or opening the door for somebody at the gym when you're going to the gym, or just saying hello. Like, people don't even say hello. That to me is an act of a higher place.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's what I believe. And, it might not be God, but if you look at all religion, it's different how they pray and how they study, but they all pray to a higher power. They all pray to a higher power. And I believe that God, is all of those things. And it's everything that you want to believe that is true, that you can't explain.
Yeah. Faith in yourself. I have to believe, and I do believe, because when I was growing up, it was, you need to do this sort of stuff. You need to live this way so that you can go to heaven. You
Mm,
need to live this way so that
same.
you can get this, so you're not punished,
Right.
right? And when I grew up, when I got older, I was like, well, why would I want to do something in fear?
Exactly.
Why do I want to be afraid of like, yeah, there's consequences, but there's also rewards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why
Mm-hmm.
do I want to believe this out of fear, right?
Right.
And I refuse to. Faith
Right.
in myself. And then I started thinking about it, and this was over the last 2.5 years. Um, you have people like Tony Robbins, for example. He does um, this great session on visualization, right?
Right. Right.
Visualizing what you want, and and being able to go towards that.
Right.
Isn't prayer kind of the same thing?
Yes.
Isn't prayer kind of like, isn't that visualization of what you want to happen, but you're saying it, or you're thinking it? And that's exactly what I think. Prayer
Mm-hmm.
is self-visualization, and
Right.
belief in a higher power is, maybe it's all revolving around our own power.
Hmm.
You
Wow.
know, like, and you know, it's just faith in yourself. Um, and if believing in God, if believing in a God,
Mm-hmm.
and going to church is how you move through life, and you are a better person, and you treat people well,
Mm-hmm.
then 100% I'm for you.
Absolutely.
You go and do
Absolutely.
what you do. That's not necessarily for me. You go and do what you do,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And some people require that. That's like, some people require to have, you know, to speak to a counselor once a week. Some
Right.
people require to do it once a month. Some people
Right.
never do it,
Right.
and that's okay. Whatever
It is.
whatever gets
Okay.
you to that point. And yeah, I have a psychologist that I talk to every 2 weeks, like clockwork. I don't miss it, because my mind's messed up sometimes, right?
Right.
Um, and it's okay. I encourage people to do it. My wife does. My kids do.
Oh, it's
I
great, man.
encourage it. Why? Because life's hard enough without support,
Right.
right?
Right.
And there's such a negative connotation towards speaking to a counselor, or a psychologist, or you know um, or anybody like that. Such a it's, you have a problem, dude. We all have problems.
Yes.
We all have problems. I'm
Right.
just speaking to somebody that will give me some tools, and who knows,
Right.
they may give me a different way of approach that
Right.
will make my life a little bit easier. So if
Right.
you're listening to this and you need to speak to somebody, please reach out to somebody and speak to them.
Right.
Like, just
Anybody.
anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the unfortunate um, experience of losing several friends to suicide because
Oh.
they didn't reach out. And it's not because they didn't reach out.
Hmm.
It There was a lot of things, pride, and the way that the
For
world
sure.
forms us as men and women, to say, you need to be strong. If you're not strong, then you're just weak. And that's not the truth.
Right.
That's not the truth. I
Right.
teach my kids it's okay to cry. It's probably the best release. And sometimes it's okay to yell and scream and to get it out. But then you got to have then you got to be rational and you got to figure it out. And if you
Right.
can't figure it out, ask for help. Ask because if you don't get help, it's you'll you just need to get help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which leads me to you mentioning about it's so strong. You're a very strong woman, and I appreciate the fact that you shared that with me about your mom and church and how that transition happened. Um, because it was different with my daughters. My younger daughter, she's 17. She still thinks boys are yucky.
That's great.
Yeah, my other two, my other two, um, crazy enough, uh, their mom, me, and I were like the first phone call. Either it was both the day after saying, "Hey, um, you know, I'm not a virgin anymore."
Mm.
And the first time I heard those words, I was just like, and then I was like, whoa,
It's
whoa, whoa,
hard.
whoa, 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 whoa. My daughter
Your baby.
just, my baby
Yeah.
just felt comfortable enough to call and say, hey, this event happened in my life.
Oh.
And I want you to know about it. Don't
Mm.
be, you know. And I was like, okay, I can't be mad because if I get mad,
Oh, it's so beautiful,
they'll
Bill.
never talk to me again or they won't tell me stuff again. Right now, my wife and I are yin and yang. I'm the laid back kind of silent dad. She's the firecracker. But and my girls know that, and it's
Yeah.
not like my
Yeah.
girls, they'll call their mom and say, hey, I lost my virginity, and she'll lose her shit. Quite the opposite. She'll be like, all right, well, are you okay? Do you
Right.
need anything? Do you need, you know?
Beautiful.
Um, but when how could, I guess she just calls them on their bullshit really quickly. Where I have more of a, yeah, that's okay, it's all right. Your dad's girl, and we'll just,
Yeah.
over. But so yeah, it's very important to me that my daughters are able uh, to to be comfortable enough to say, hey, you know what, a I fucked up or I did well, and
Right.
either way, they're going to get support,
Right.
right? And I think
Right.
sometimes that's what we're missing nowadays is
Hmm.
that support. Yeah, okay, you know what? I don't give a shit who you are. You mess up. You
Right.
mess up. And whether you feel the consequences of that or not, if you have kids, support them.
Right.
Support. Don't coddle them, but support them.
Right.
Right? You fucked up. All right, let's figure out a way out of it. Let's move forward and try not to do it again. Right.
Right.
So, kids are hard though, right? So,
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like I don't have any, I'm the oldest of five. I have, lots of, I have, five or six best friends that we've been friends for 30 something years, and all their kids are my nieces and nephew. I love
yeah,
the shit out of those kids. And Daniel's a girl dad too. He has three girls as well. They're 14, 11, and 7. And they are
wow,
a hoot, man.
yeah,
They are amazing and unique in all the most beautiful ways. And I'm excited to, be a part of their lives more and more. And it takes one day at a time.
yeah,
But I also think what you said, and this is what my mom didn't do. When I told her these things, she was reactive because the whole time growing up, I was like a perfect little Christian girl. She wanted to bring, her family up in a perfect Christian world because she has so much trauma in her life.
mm,
Her dad committed suicide when she was 17 years old. She will say, even though I know her mom, my uncle is like my mom's brother, he's one of my best friends. Like their grandma is amazing. But in her eyes, she wasn't taken care of. And due to all these circumstances, her first husband was 22 years older than her. And I think it was a way for her to get out of the situation she was in, and somebody took care of her.
Mm.
But the great thing she did for me is that she recognized that, like, this side of his side of the family's crazy. There's drug addicts. They're in and out of insane asylums. This is her story.
Yep.
And she got out of there. She got out of there and found my dad, and that's a beautiful thing. She became a nurse to learn how to take care of her kids. Eventually she was a stay-at-home mom. I'm very, very much grateful for that. I have a lot of gratitude for that. But at the same time, when you're just brought up in this box where you don't see anything, you don't see life, and what you've done as parents, you and your wife, growing up the way you did, you chose to be the one. You chose to make a difference in your timeline of your history of how you were brought up. And so your kids are comfortable talking to you because you made that choice to let them be able to come to you. And instead of being reactive, like my mom was reactive, yelling and screaming at me, my brother, the second oldest, after my dad passed away 16 years ago. He was 43, tragic. And, I asked him, we were driving down the PCH to my aunt's house, and he was really struggling. I think it was just like 2 years after my dad died. And I was like, and he, I thought maybe because they were in they weren't talking to each other at that moment. And I thought maybe he had trauma, from that. And, I wanted to help him. I wanted him to be able to talk to me about it. I wanted my brothers and my one sister to have someone that they can come to and talk about anything. Because my grandma was like that to us, thankfully. My dad, he was just really quiet. The last 3 years before he died, I actually could talk to him about boys and, talk to him about deep stuff. And I remember like we were driving and I could see his face like, you know what I mean? But he listened to me, and I will never, ever forget that because he wasn't reactive.
Yeah.
And when you're put into a reactive state as a child from your own parent, guess what? That relationship died. And
Yeah.
there is coming back to that. And, has taken years for me to come in and out of, the relationship with my mom. And, unfortunately, I don't have a relationship with her because she still shames me to this day. And that's not a way to treat a child. It's not a way to treat anybody. Just like religion. If someone has a different religion than you, as long as you respect the other person, this goes to politics. It goes to everything. As long as you respect the other person and listen to what they have to say, have a healthy conversation about it, and learn to love each other, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it really, can spin a child out of control where they hide everything from you. I didn't want to be home. I didn't party when I was in high school. I played soccer. I had good grades. My senior year, I, started going to parties, and all, my friends were like, "Oh yeah, we've been partying since we were freshmen." What? Like, I was shocked. And I remember when I went to my first party, everyone was drinking and like people were making out, and like I was drinking water, you know what I mean? And I was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, Bill. Like, I was like, this is real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were times where it was really fun, but then I went into a really, really deep depression because after I told my mom that, she kicked me out. Before she kicked me out, she made me go to a different school at the end of my junior year. And the guy that I was with broke up with me because I was going to a different school. I mean, and I never had closure with him, you know what I mean? And so it led me down the spiral of, I didn't get to have this relationship with my mom. I didn't have the guy of my dreams. I didn't have the school that I wanted to go to. I just wanted to be free. I wanted to live and like see what people were doing and go to plays and watch movies and just be a kid. You know what I mean? And instead, I had to grow up really fast. I was depressed for 10 years, man. 10 years because of all of that. Because I didn't have the tools or people that I could talk to. But thank God, whoever angels were saving me through that time was my best friends and their parents. And I got to see what love was with families always getting together, even through the drama. They still got together. They invited me everywhere. And I'm like, this is really cool. And, you know, there was a time in my life where I really regretted not being at home because I wasn't close to my siblings at that time. And so I was guilty for years. And that led me to a lot of greatness with my siblings. Like, but at the same time, I think I was always doing too much because I wanted them to know what love was. I wanted them to know what family and uniting together and hugging each other, man. Like, I wanted them to know what that felt like because I learned that through other families and my grandma. And so, you know, and then there came to a point where I wasn't living for me, I was living for everybody else. And that's, you know, at 28 is when I started this full journey of learning how to love myself. And, you know, it's taken a long, long time. And, you know, like I'm still very close to my siblings. You know, some of them, you know, don't support me in my podcast, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I know they'll see it someday, like the bigger picture of why I do this, because I want to help as many people as I can.
Oh,
Because
I'm
I've been there. I've been there.
Brittany. I'm
You know?
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. You are where you're supposed to be at this moment.
Yeah.
You've endured what you've endured
Mhm.
for a reason. And there is somebody out there right now watching this podcast,
Mhm.
or 10 weeks from now, they're clicking on this podcast, they're listening to the story, and they're like, I feel it.
Yeah.
And you, because of who you are and what you do, whether you know it or not, you're changing people's lives.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. And
Yeah.
you're here. This is that 1 degree,
Mhm.
that airplane changing 1 degree and traveling an hour,
Mhm.
right? Seriously. Because I love your story. I love who you are. I love the fact that you're free to say this, and the impact that you have on people. I think you just don't know it, right? And people are blessed to know you.
Oh man.
They
Thank
are
you.
100%.
Thank
Like,
you.
you floor me, and you know, we go through so many things. You know, my mom, single mom. My biological dad died when I was 5. My mom working, you know,
Wow.
number of jobs, 3 kids. She couldn't handle me, so she shipped me off to live with my grandmother. Right, so I lived with
Oh,
my
right.
grandmother, and then I would live with my aunt, and then back with my grandmother, and blah blah blah.
Wow, Bill.
Poor me, but all that allowed me to get to where I was, where I'm
Right.
at. When I met my wife, she'd already had what I consider my oldest daughter, um, and uh, I make it a point to call her my daughter, regardless. But you
Oh,
know, we when we first got together, we promised ourselves. We told each other our stories. I mean, it was
right.
really weird. We told each other like everything, absolutely everything,
Right.
and we said to each other that we're, you know, I mean, so I met my wife in January, so we'd known each other for about 4 years, talked on the phone because she worked at a warehouse that we leased. Um, she didn't really, she worked because I told her she had to work late on Friday afternoons and blah blah blah. But the first time I ever met her, I was just like, "You'll never work another Friday afternoon again," right? Like
Yeah.
it was just crazy. So um, within 9 months of us meeting, we had a child together, which
Oh,
was perfect, was awesome. I loved it. Like crazy, like just it goes with our story. Like, but
right, right,
we
right.
made it together and said, whatever we do, if we're going to do this together, we're going to change our stars. We're going to change our
Yeah, man.
children's stars. Like they're not going to grow up the way that we grew up,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So,
man. It's
and
beautiful.
it hasn't been. It's not easy. Like
No, it's not.
it's not easy.
It's not.
Um, so our oldest daughter, Chelsea, healthy, wonderful kid, like just an amazing free spirit. Um, our daughter Olivia, who's the
Love
middle,
that.
yeah, she's the most stubborn thing in the world. She's just like crazy. You can, if she tells you that the sky is purple, it's purple until even if you prove her wrong, it's purple. So, but she's the one at 2 years old. She was actually diagnosed with cancer,
Oh my
and
God.
yeah, and so within 24 hours, like we took her to our family doctor, who said, it was a virus. Here's some penicillin. Here's some antibiotics, and went on for about 2 weeks, and finally, it was middle of the night. Uh, Took her into emergency, and by that was 2 o'clock in the morning, and by 7 o'clock in the morning, we were on a Learjet being flown to Children's Hospital. Two
Wow.
charities
Wow.
that I will always give to and always support, um, regardless of what anyone else says. Children's hospitals, because they deserve a fighting chance, and you have no idea how much it helps the families surrounding that.
Right.
Children's hospitals. The other one is, although it's one of the biggest, it's supported by one of the biggest companies in the world, Ronald McDonald House. We lived in a Ronald McDonald House for 10 months, and not a lot of people understand what it is and what they do.
Huh.
So, kind of go back on this. So they flew us down to our children's hospital, which is 4 hours away. That morning, we sat in a room, my wife and I, with two oncologists, a nurse, and a priest. Basically told us, you got 36 to 48 hours. If we can't catch it within that time, then there's nothing. That's how far it was leukemia, and that's how far it spread. Within
Oh my
24
God.
hours, she'd gone through three full blood transfusions, like a 2-year-old having all the blood sucked out of her and replaced.
Holy sh.
Platelet transfusions, a couple lumbar punctures because the fluid inside the spinal cord, they
Right.
measure certain stuff. So yeah, it was the wildest thing. We won the lottery.
Yeah.
We did. We won the lottery. She was 2 years old, so total resilient. Didn't know what was going on. All she wanted to do was play, right? But she couldn't. She didn't have the energy. So you know, uh, that's what kept her fighting spirit. She didn't know any other way but to just keep on living. So that, and her diagnosis was ALL, so acute lymphomatic leukemia. which is cancer of the blood, um, and it gets
Right.
into your bone marrows and stuff like that. So
Yes, I'm aware of,
if
yeah,
we're going to if we're going to pick a cancer to get, um, then that's the one you want to pick because
right,
it's the survival rate's the highest.
right.
Um, so we're we're sitting in the doctor's office, and she's the doctor oncologist who is still like lifelong friends now. Um,
That's
that
amazing.
I have two protocols here, and our health system's a little bit different than the U.S. Our health system,
Right,
majority of it's covered.
right,
Um, in this case, the two protocols, one was a protocol for chemotherapy that gave, she's like, it's a 60% chance at this point, right? And we're like, okay, well, we can live with 60. And
wow.
then she's like, there's also the trial drug protocol, which I just finished one with a little boy, identical everything to your daughter. Um, so I'm going to give it a 90% chance. The only problem is that the medication that she takes 4 pills a day, $140 a day. Um, Even before we could calculate it, I said, yes, let's do it. I'll figure it out. I don't
Of
do it.
course, of
Right?
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you're, you do, $140 a pill. You're doing 4 pills a day, right? Um, doesn't take long for $700 a day to add up to $7,000 for 10 days to
Right,
$21,000 a month for
right.
6 months. Um, we didn't have that money. We sold everything we had, like
Oh, yeah.
absolutely everything we had.
Mhm.
And 10 months later, we walked out of Ronald McDonald House and BC Children's Hospital, and drove home, um,
Wow.
in
Wow.
debt, but with our
Worth it.
child.
Worth
Yeah.
every penny.
So,
Worth every
um,
penny.
yeah, crazy. You
Wow.
know, some people would be like the worst time of our life. It was,
Yeah.
but it
Right.
was it was also the most amazing time of our life.
Right.
At that point, the trajectory of my family changed.
Right.
Um, we came to realize that our lives are shorter than we'll ever know,
Exactly.
and things
Exactly.
changed very quickly. Um, we met we met some the silver lining to her getting leukemia, um, is I can't imagine it not happening because the ways that we've been blessed with the people that we've grown to know, the friends that we've made, the the people that we still continue to be able to help through our donations,
Yeah.
um, the the lives that I think we touch just through third party, just by doing that, just by donating. Um, like Ronald McDonald House. First of all, any children's hospital, um, because it's a children's hospital, because it deals with children
Right.
that haven't lived yet.
Yeah. They're
Um,
innocent.
they get my support.
Absolutely.
Um, same with like animals, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
But and then Ronald McDonald House. So it's supported by the McDonald's Corporation. Obviously, they got Happy Days, McHappy Days, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, Ronald McDonald House. It's you walk in there and you don't see anything that says McDonald's on it, right? It's it's Ronald McDonald House. It's a place that families can go to be safe.
Oh,
Um, it is a place where so the first month my wife and I actually lived inside the hospital in a hotel
Right.
because we couldn't get a room at this Ronald McDonald House,
Right.
and we struggled. We struggled.
I bet.
Like
Bet.
it was terrible.
Right.
Not very much support. The staff was great, and we applied to go to Ronald McDonald House, and the lady was like, "Okay, well you're a month away at least," and this was already two and a half, 3 weeks into our journey,
Right.
and 2 weeks later she called and said, "Hey, I just got an opening. Um, you're more than welcome to come." So we go and we fill out our paperwork, and uh, crazy is that it's subsidized by certain groups, right? So the Leukemia Society gets subsidized. They subsidize some of it. McDonald's subsidizes some of it, and then local charities do the same thing, right?
Right.
They'll go and sponsor a room like us, where doesn't it doesn't matter if the family can pay or not.
Right.
They have a room because we pay it.
Aw.
So, and we didn't know all this. So we're there, and our world is crumbling. Like
For
in,
sure.
it is like earthquake.
Yeah.
The comforting thing is that when we went there, there were other families that had gone through what we had, and were
Right.
in other stages of the
Right.
journey. We were like, we're all alone. No one else is going through what we're going through, right? But lo and behold, there's a whole house of families
And
that
support.
are going through the same thing or something similar to what you're going
Right.
through.
Right.
So Ronald McDonald House is a huge support network
Wow.
of families dealing with what they're dealing with and supporting each other. Um, I seriously credit to us as a family staying together. We
Right.
know a lot of other people that it didn't turn out very well for them,
Right.
right? Um,
Right.
and so having that support network, having that, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, 10 months later, we walked out to uh, we totally changed. I left the work that I was doing. My wife left the work that we were doing. We moved to a new city, um, and basically, when traumatic things like that happen to you, you find out who your real friends and family are.
Oh man.
And
You
it happened
did?
very quickly.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I was in a family business, which I didn't continue on with. We moved from the area that our family and friends have been because they just weren't there any longer. They couldn't
Wow.
comprehend. They couldn't deal with it. They
Wow.
didn't. So we found out real quickly. So being being $200,000 in debt after we sold everything, which isn't a lot now. Um, but being in debt, we forged our any paperwork that we could get to get a
Right.
mortgage for our house
Right.
on a craft table at Ronald McDonald House, and you know, we lied through our teeth just to get a home. And ten
That's
months later,
okay.
yeah, you know what? I don't regret anything
Nope.
now because I
Gotta do what you
was
gotta
able to
do
walk
for your
into, yeah.
family.
So did that, and then yeah, uh, 2 years later, our life, our family's life went through another change, and that's when I actually deployed to Afghanistan.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so I was in the midst of doing my training when Olivia was diagnosed. I was in the midst of doing my training to go
Oh my
to Afghanistan,
God.
and everything was not put on hold. It was meant to
Right.
happen the way that it did.
Right.
And hindsight now, everything happened the way that it did because
Right.
of the way that life happens, right?
Right.
The way that our
Right.
story is written.
Right.
Um, so yeah, when we left, actually a couple months later, I went, another crazy thing. A couple months later, after we left Ronald McDonald House, my wife and I had this crazy harebrained idea of going to seek some money, getting a loan, buying a truck, getting a loan, buying a trailer, and we ended up having a envelope full of cash that we said we're going on a trip. So we took this truck and this trailer, this camper, and we kind of gave ourselves our own little reward of took the kids on a journey for a month,
Aw.
and we drove down all the way down to San Diego. We spent, time at the SeaWorld down there. Took the kids to SeaWorld, took them to Disneyland. Um, Crazy story at Disneyland. It was my daughter's birthday. Booked her a uh, booked her a birthday party at Arrow's Grotto because she was all about the princesses. The night before, my wife found out that the shoes that she'd bought didn't fit her, and so the next morning, just before her birthday lunch, my wife and I are sitting at Disneyland, and she's like, "I'm gonna go exchange these. You go to the spot, and don't you dare be late. Like you be there on time because you got a book and there's one." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So I go through the gates, and this guy pulls me aside, and he's like, "Hey, where are you from?" And I'm like, "We're from Canada, and these are my," because I'm with myself and three little girls,
Right.
right? And there's no mom; it's just me and three little girls. And he's like, "Oh, well, are these your daughters?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, I really don't have time for a timeshare, right?" And I literally said, "Sir, I'm sorry, I don't have time for a timeshare pitch. If you can, please help me out. I need to get to Ariel's Grotto." And he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, oh okay, sure, no problem." He's like, "You go that way," and he kind of gives me direction. He's like, "Is it a birthday?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a birthday. It's Olivia's birthday," and blah blah blah. So I'm like, "Sorry, I need to leave. If I'm not there, my wife's gonna kill me." And away we go because we were cutting it short,
Yeah.
close. So I get to Ariel's Grotto, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you know, check in, and I'm like, okay, things are good. My wife's not going to be mad. I'm happy. She's going to get her shoes, and you know, out of the blue, this guy comes up. He's like, hey, I've been looking for you. And then I remembered that you were going to Ariel's Grotto. I'm like, dude, I I'm sorry. I will be upfront with you. I don't have any money. Like I have an envelope full of cash, and that's all I got. I can't afford a timeshare. I just here. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not here for a timeshare. He's like, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, well, it's we're on a celebratory trip. My daughter, and it's her birthday. Gosh, she made it to four. Like,
Yeah. Right.
this
Right.
is super awesome. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, that's cool. He's like, um, is your wife here? I'm like, oh yeah, she's exchanging the shoes. That's why I had to be here. Blah blah blah. But now I can breathe. And he's like, oh, did you uh, did you know that it just happens to be uh, uh, Disneyland's Year of a Million Dreams? I'm like, oh no, yeah, we heard something about it. Yeah, and he's like, oh, um, at this point, my wife and my kids are like Disney fanatics, right? And he
Yeah.
said, "Oh well, how would you guys like to be the grand marshals in the parade tonight?" And I'm like,
Oh.
"What? Like, are you kidding me?" Right? So I'm like, hey, don't don't be lying, right? This is crazy. Like it just doesn't happen,
Right.
right? People
Right.
like it doesn't happen to us, right?
Right.
So yeah, land of our Year of a Million Dreams, and my wife comes, and she's just like she shows up, and she tells the guy the exact same thing. She's like, "Bill, did you tell him that we're not interested in timeshare?" I'm like, oh no, you wait, you listen to this. I'm pretty sure you'll buy his timeshare, right? So, yeah, so we were able to be the grand marshals at
Oh.
Disneyland Parade that night, which was like
What an
crazy.
experience.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. So we were lucky. Um, but that yeah, it's nuts. And then about yeah, about 1 year after that is when I started to do my training and um, went to Afghanistan. I spent 10 months in Kandahar
Wow.
province,
Wow.
and once again, um, you know, it was the crappiest um, situation. Lost friends, experienced and saw things that I never want to see, and never
Right.
thought was possible.
Right.
Um, on the flip side, I was able to do some amazing things and to meet some amazing people through the whole
Right.
experience, and
Right.
um, you know that perspective alone changed the way that I thought and my family thought, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
luckily, my daughters, it was a blink in the eye, for them. For my wife, it was, much harder. For me, it was much harder. But coming back from that experience, and I ended up having depression and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
and um, taking a long time to come back from it. But now, um, I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm helping other veterans,
Oh, that's amazing,
because
Bill.
I've been through what I've been through, and helping them when they go through it, and um, being able to share, the story of what I went through, and it's a different language. I could talk,
Right.
I could sit here and talk about, you
Oh, it
know,
is.
little details, but
Yeah.
a lot of people wouldn't understand. A lot of people, it's very difficult to comprehend the fact that, you know, um, people people died, or some of the things that they did, right? It's very difficult to comprehend that, you know twice
Hmm.
we had to escort 3 busloads of kids from one orphanage to another orphanage, twice, because that orphanage sold them as sex slaves. And how it affects you, knowing that where you're taking them, you have no control with how it's going to turn out.
Oh my God.
The average person on the street has no idea shit like this exists.
Right.
And then you wonder why, people come back and they're kind of messed up, right?
Totally. I mean, my
It's
girlfriend was in the army for 20 years as a female,
Yeah,
and it's very hard for her to talk about. And, we won't comprehend those things because we don't, you have to experience them to comprehend, and
yeah,
nobody wants to experience that. But it's
mm,
just like, for like the movie The Sound of Freedom, it's like the people that shame that movie, that shame that, like, that doesn't exist in Afghanistan with orphanages and kids being sold. It's because they don't want to believe it. They don't
no,
want to live in that fear that it's real. And it affects so many people with depression and, being afraid and all these things, where we have to figure out how to heal from that, but also be a voice for a reason that this is happening. And
and
so,
it's so
it's
crazy how
it's crazy. It's horrible. It's
it's easy.
horrible.
Yes, but those people that don't want to acknowledge it, I mean, yeah, shame on them, because it's not the
Absolutely,
fact that they don't
100%.
want to acknowledge it. It's easier not to acknowledge it, because if they acknowledge it, that
It's
means that
real.
now they have to do something about it,
Right.
right? And it's not their
Right.
problem.
Right.
because it's not in front of their face, and it's not,
Right.
it, and it happens everywhere,
Okay. Every day.
every day. And like, as a father, I grew up in, I went through my kid's life with fear that something would happen,
Right.
right? Because I knew, like, as a
All those
kid,
things.
I knew,
Yeah.
right? As a kid, our knee, couple blocks over, but their daughter, right? And at that time, we didn't, like, it was different, but their daughter was taken to Vancouver, and they didn't see her for like 3 or 4 years, and she was prostituted out. And she was like
Oh my
she was
God.
like 12, 13 at the time.
Oh my God.
And we were kids, and I didn't understand it until
Right.
later. And
Right.
I was
Right.
like, holy shit, I knew somebody that this happened to,
Right.
right?
Right.
And she wasn't the same person when she left as when she
No.
came back. You,
Right.
you,
That's so
you,
sad. That's so fucked up. That's so
you know,
fucked
and
up.
yeah, I haven't seen The Sound of Silence yet, because they're not playing it here in my local area. I don't know if there's a reason, but it hasn't
Oh,
been released
interesting.
yet.
Oh, interesting.
Um, but I've watched all the trailers. I've watched portions on TikTok, and it's and Sean Ryan does a podcast with
Oh yeah.
the woman that's about, um, so strong, like, um, and it hits you like a ton of bricks.
It
It's
does. I mean, it's like, seeing that movie, I knew that was happening, but I didn't know to that extent. That movie, they made that 5 years ago. All of the
yeah, that's what,
actors, all the producers, everybody had to fight for that movie to be put out because obviously government don't want that shit to be out because the
uh,
United States is the number one sex trafficking country. It
yeah,
is as high percentage as it is to drugs.
yeah, and
Wild,
we're not far behind.
wild,
It is.
wild.
It is.
And that's why it's important to see and open your eyes to these things. And yes, these things are, like how you witnessed it would give you PTSD and depression, but you knew you had to fight for loving yourself and that taking that journey to be the best father that you could be and being the best husband to, to the fact of, opening your children's eyes to these things, right? I mean, children, maybe 15 and up should see this movie to understand that this
Mhm.
is real. Like you have to see it, sometimes to really believe it. And that's where people are, I'm not going to see that movie. That's not real, blah, blah, blah. It's probably backed up by blah, 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 blah. And you're like, dude, do you know who Tim Ballard is? Like he lives here in Utah, man. Like I got friends that are friends with him. This is a real thing.
Yeah,
And that movie will bring you to your knees. And that's just one story.
you're right.
It's
That's just
just
one story.
one story. And then you think about like my podcast that was released 2 weeks ago with Monique Davis. Her daughter was sex trafficked a year and a half ago. They couldn't call the police. They called our rescue,
Yeah,
and they found the guy. They caught the guy, and then it made me remember of like, dude, I remember when I was young of someone coming up to me being like, you should be a model, da 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 da. And I was like, it was a stranger. So I was like, yeah, no, I'll talk to my mom about it. You never know what that was. I'll never know to this day, but I was a little girl, you know what I mean? And I've never, I always thought it was weird. And so obviously that feeling was true now that I get older. But it's like, I love how you look at life, Bill, as, all these things that are so hard and can literally break you to pieces where you give up. And
yeah,
you and your wife chose not to give up, and you chose to love on your kids and your family and each other, and then celebrated with experiences of
Yeah.
buying a truck and buying a trailer and giving your kids experiences that, the hard times are not forever. The
No.
hard times are a part of us. The hard times are given to us because God or whoever you believe in knows that we can get through it. I don't think anything is put in our lives that we can't get through. But you are given a choice. You're given a choice to either accept it and deal with it and move on and use those tools to, and keep going to therapy and all those things, whatever works for you, like you were saying in the past, or you let that take over your life and you hide it under alcohol, drugs, addictions of any sorts, and that spirals you out of control. And if you're there listening, like you still, even if you go that way, you still have a choice to go to get out of that. And like what Bill said a while ago, it doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be Bill. You can reach out to Bill. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to somebody. If maybe we don't have the answer, we know somebody. Maybe that's a safer route for any of you guys that are experiencing PTSD or, anything like that. My boyfriend, Daniel, has a podcast called Freeing Your Mind, and it specializes in PTSD. You know what I mean? And so it's really how you want to look at your life and decide how your life is going to look. You get to decide. You get to decide. And you decided to be the best that you can be. And that's why your children are amazing, Bill.
Yeah.
That's why your children are smart and they're driven. It's because of you and your wife. It's because you showed up and you stayed the course through love and light and just taking things on and rediscovering who you are as individuals and a family. I mean, it's a beautiful experience, man. And I'm happy that you are in a place of life that you know that you're supposed to be here right now, and you get to enjoy these things and always, have awareness of where you are in your life and moving forward and continuing to have that experience that you have to give back to help others. And that's what it's all about, man. I mean, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here doing what I'm doing. I never thought in my life I would be sitting here with a podcast or a coaching group or anything like that. But like, even though there's so many podcasts, there's so many coaching groups, like I am passionate. And the more of us that, like, that's the thing. It's like, if there's so many of us doing this, that just means we're a big freaking team. Because we're all unique in our own ways. We all have something to give in a unique way. And everybody's different. Everyone's going to attach to somebody in different ways. And why not? If I have the ability, just like you do, having the ability to give back in ways that you want to, that you get to decide, I think that's heaven.
Yeah.
I think that's part of heaven, is understanding that we don't need to be selfish with what we have. We need to understand that, like, we are worthy of what we have, but we also have worthiness to show our light to other people and guide people to wherever they need to be.
I agree. There's, if any of the listeners out there, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, I've struggled with mental health. Some days I couldn't even get out of bed.
Right.
I've struggled with the alcohol.
Yeah.
I've had my wife find me in a shower with a gun in my mouth because I was so depressed. If you're there, or if you're going there, there is hope. There are people that love and care for you and that want to help you.
Absolutely.
Ask for the help.
Ask for help.
Because nobody deserves to go through it alone, and
No.
nobody will, because there's people out there. I Not everyone that I asked for help gave me help or gave me the help that I needed. Some gave me the
Right.
help that they thought I should have,
Right.
and that wasn't it. It took me several times to get the right help.
Right.
And
And it does. It does. And it's like the people you think that are going to help you, they don't. And that
no,
can spiral you out of control and like feel like why should I live anymore?
that's
Why
exactly
should
it.
I live anymore? But you have to find that inner peace because like in today's world, we are absolutely shamed for asking for help.
We're
And
shamed for asking for help. We're shamed for loving ourselves. We're
absolutely. And it's
shamed.
ridiculous. It's like, what kind of world is this? And that's why we make our own world and our own place to get help. And you know, and that's the thing. That's why we're here, right? It's like why we're telling our stories because like you might not be able to afford a therapist. You might not be able to, you know, get the right help that you actually need, but there are people that you can talk to. You know, Daniel was in that same position where he didn't want to live anymore. His PTSD took him to drinking,
Mhm.
and then he was drinking a fifth a day. It got to that point. And now, but he decided that it didn't have to be like that,
Yeah.
and
It
opened up
doesn't.
and asked for help. And it just takes one person that you got to ask help. And if they don't have the answer, like if you ask me for help, you guys, if you ask Bill for, and we don't have the answer, well, we know somebody.
Yeah.
Don't be
Yeah.
afraid.
There's there's a
Life
ton of
is
resources
beautiful.
out there. Ton of resources out there, and I
Yeah,
pray that if you need it, you take advantage of it. If you don't need it, then offer it to somebody.
right,
Just ask, "How you
right.
doing today?" You know,
Right. And
sometimes
that's a
people
big
do.
thing. That's today because people don't talk to each other anymore. I had this conversation with Leandra a couple podcasts back. It's just like say hello to people and ask them how are you. Sometimes people will be like, "Oh my God, you can change somebody's life by asking, how are you?"
Yeah, that's it.
Literally,
Simple question. You don't have to carry their
literally.
baggage. You don't have to
No,
carry their baggage, but sometimes, you know, if it if you could do that by simply saying, "How are you today? Do you need anything?" If you could change one life, if you could save one life by doing that,
right,
who knows? Maybe I already have, because I've
right,
asked a lot of people.
right,
Maybe I already have, but
right.
that one life, 100% worth it. And I honestly
Yeah.
believe that the podcast that you do, Brittany, is doing that.
Well, and it's people like you
Seriously.
that, you know, let your shield down and tell your story. It's not, I might lead this podcast, right? I might be the leader of the Freedom Den. And I just had this conversation last night on my coaching call, was like, this is not just about me. There's members in my group that are a part of my table. Like, you know, I have Vic, he's an expert with mindset. You got Daniel, you know, who's an expert in healing from PTSD. Like I am the leader, but this is my table of people that we can all come to ask questions and I'm going to have them lead calls in the future. It's not just me. It's about just creating the stage for
Yeah,
people to come to, creating this podcast for people to come to. And yeah, I never know, you know, what story I'm going to expect. And that's the beautiful thing. And that's what's so beautiful about it, because I create this stage for anybody that wants to come on here. Even you guys listening in the audience, if you're like, dude, I think I can do this. I think I can tell my story. Please reach out to me.
it
And
helps.
it's just all about like creating that safe space, that platform, because I have the ability to do it. And I'm not going to stop. And it takes, you know, it takes a team. It's not an individual. And I say that because that is also a version of asking for help. You know, you can never do anything by yourself. You know what I mean? You can, obviously, that makes you a unique person, an individual, and a strong person. But at the end of the day, we all need somebody. We all need someone to pray to. We all need that comfort. We all need a hug. We all need, you know, someone to say hello to us. And, you know, this stage is for all of you to be a part of. And so that's kind of how I look at this platform and the things that I'm doing. It's for the community that we build together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Bill, I just, man, I always say this on all the podcasts, but you know what I mean? Like every podcast touches my heart so much. And it's just amazing how I get to connect with, this is cool for me because I get to connect and hear these stories. It's not just me hearing these stories behind the chair, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously I hear a lot behind the chair as well as in the salon. And it's just a different experience and it's a different stage. And man, I'm so appreciative of you sharing all these things. I'm sure you can keep going about all these things. And you know, I'm gonna actually talk to Dan, and maybe you should be on his podcast too, to even just
I would love to be able to
even just to expand this story more so. I think it would be so
I would love
awesome.
to.
And
I would love
yeah,
to.
like let's continue to be in the light, you guys. Be in the light. Don't be
Yes,
afraid to ask for help. Like just know that you are loved. Like you're the only one in this world that's like you.
that's
You
right.
know what I mean? And just thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope, you know, we all get to meet in person someday. And I really appreciate your time. And, you know, this part of the podcast, you guys, I don't have to record this, but to me, like showing my gratitude for my guests is also a lesson for you guys all to understand is like, have gratitude, man. Like have gratitude for what's in front of you. Have gratitude when your feet hit the floor out of the bed. Like I'm thankful that I had a bed to sleep on. You know, when you start your day like that, of having that gratitude, like I have a roof over my head, man. I have a water bottle for crying out loud. You know, it's like all these little things. You're like, some people don't have these things. So be grateful. And I'm so grateful for you, man.
I'm grateful for you
Keep
too, and
spreading your love.
podcast that you do.
Yeah, keep shining your light. You're a lighthouse. And
Thank you.
I I wish all
I
the
think
best
that's
for
why
you.
we got why we attracted this way, because
Absolutely, man.
when you made that post with who wants to, um I was like, yeah, it was who wants to. I'm in, because that's what something told me. That's what I was supposed to do. And after I hit send, I was like, oh
Like,
well,
oh
okay,
shit.
yeah, maybe they'll get back to me. Maybe, but I didn't know. And then all of a sudden, you did, and it took us a couple tries, but we got here. I absolutely loved my time talking to you, and I appreciate you sharing what you shared, um, because I love hearing other people's stories and how I can relate to them, and
Right.
uh, being able to share it,
It's
being
growth.
able it lifts weight. It lifts
Yes.
weight. So thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, man.
yeah, and
Absolutely. I mean,
and tell Dan I would more than love to go in depth with my battle with depression and PTSD,
yeah, man.
and um and my journey through that, uh, because although there's a lot of stories like that, each one of them is unique, and
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like we all have a story, right? And some of these stories that I interview, I'm like, holy shit, that's way worse than mine. But as you're experiencing your story, and you guys, I really want you to understand this. As you experience these things in your life, it all feels the same. Little different degrees, of course.
yeah,
But like how these things make us feel, it all hurts the same.
yeah,
And so there's not a wrong story. There's not a better story. There's not a sadder story. It's your story and how you get to decide to get out of it.
Yeah.
And so, we're here for you. We love you, and
100%.
reach out. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, man.
Thank you.
And we'll stay in touch for sure. For
Yes, absolutely.
sure.
Wonderful.
All right, man. Well, you have an amazing night.
I
I
will.
hope you guys reach out, ask for help. Don't be afraid. Don't let your ego get in the way. Don't let fear get in the way. And tell yourself that you're motherfucking badass, and say it in the mirror every day, you guys. So I love you guys.
Absolutely.
And thank you for hanging out and listening to this call. And, God bless you all, or energy bless you all, whatever, you know what I mean? Heaven bless you all, like all the things. Bless. I'm blessed. So
We'll do it again.
yeah, we
We'll do
will.
it again. All right.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Have a good
Thank
one.
you. Take care.
You too.